Everyone, welcome to the Home Enthusiast with myself, Remy from Remy's Real Estate. Today we've got Eva Porter from Porter Designs, and Eva is an expert in her field and she's a landscape architect. We've got a few questions. Landscaping is super important in Queensland, and we've got a few questions for her, so very excited to get into it. Thank you for coming.
Turn your house into a home and join us on the Home Enthusiast podcast.
Cool. All right. So I guess my first question is, when you engage with someone to go through their property, how do you approach a landscape plan? How do you approach it?
Sure. Okay. So when I meet a residential client, we usually go for a walk around the outdoor space together. And then we talk about and imagine how they'd like to use the space and what type of activities they want to do. And then from that, create the garden rooms that will suit their personality and the way that they would like to use the space.
Yeah. Okay. So every client and every home is different.
Yep, definitely.
Okay. Being in Queensland, does the climate here, for example, will be different than a landscape plan you could do in New South Wales or Tasmania or whatnot? Like, does the climate play a big role in the choices you're going to present?
Definitely, yeah. So it comes down to the planting palette that you use, as well as in Queensland, we have this beautiful long summer. So we like to live outdoors. So that means that, there'll be outdoor living areas, which are lounge rooms, or outdoor dining, which is your dining table with chairs, outdoor bar, so like your bar table, your bar stools, and then, just outdoor space for the, they have kids, like beautiful lawn areas for the kids to play.
Yeah.
Outdoor cubby houses. We can also grow a lot of vegetables all season.
Okay.
So then kitchen gardens are also a common element. And then also you've got the swimming pool.
Yeah.
because
Okay.
of
So
the summer weather.
when I think about landscape architect, I think about plants and stuff, but you actually look at everything as well, like outdoor, like a fire pit or retaining walls. You look at all that, and you make it a big part of a big plan.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so it's basically like you think about an architect does the inside of the home and creates the home, but the landscape architect creates the outdoor environment, the outdoor living.
Everything. Okay, that's really cool. How does the amount of natural light and the slope of a property can affect what you decide? What I mean by that is we see properties that are south facing instead of north or west, and we see blocks that are completely flat, and we see blocks that are very slopey. So how does that affect what the plan is, basically?
Definitely. So with south-facing gardens, like you got your shade-loving plants. It's also a perfect spot for those, hot summer days where you can sit in the shade and enjoy the shade. The opposite can happen if like a site is too exposed to the sun and it's just too glaringly hot and it's just so uncomfortable. So you kind of want to balance those spaces. So if you have a space that's too bright and too hot, you want to create shade so that you then can enjoy the space for longer.
So tall trees?
Yeah, you can do tall trees, or it can be like a pergola, it can be like a built element, or something that can grow.
Do you go, for example, for all these stuff that needs to have a bit of height, do you go through council sometimes, all the time, or does it depend?
With built structures, yes. Usually you'll have to go for the council depending how big it can be.
Type of trees?
Type of trees? Usually not, no.
Usually not. Even if they're going to be very high, it's...
No, but we choose plants that will suit the site. So you don't want a giant tree, obviously. Like you want like a perfect sized tree.
Yeah, that's going to give the right amount of shade and whatnot. Okay.
Yeah. And then with the sloping ground, so like flat spaces can sometimes be quite boring. So sometimes you want to create a bit of, movement with the ground. While, a sloped garden, if it's too sloped, then it becomes unusable. So then you want to create flattened areas so that you can create usable spaces.
Retaining walls, is that what you're saying?
Yep. Yeah, you create a retaining wall to flatten part of the land and slope other areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Around pool areas and wet and all that stuff, around jacuzzis or pools, is there particular types of plants or trees to avoid putting right around the pools?
Yes. I guess my pet hate is bamboo because bamboo is very, very, very messy.
And it grows really quickly too,
yes,
right?
Yes, it does, yeah. And depending on the bamboo, it can be quite invasive. So you want to choose plants for pool areas that have low leaf drop or large leaf drop. So, for example, if you choose like a frangipani, if the leaves fall in the pool, they're really easy to pick up because they're big. but also like they fall seasonally. So then you'd only have to pick them up during one season of the
Yeah.
year. While, you know, some pools I see they're situated underneath a jacaranda tree.
Yep.
So then you get tiny little leaves in the pool
the
as
top.
well as all the flowers.
It's pretty, but it's
pretty.
a lot of maintenance.
Yeah, a lot of maintenance. Yeah.
Okay, all right. What about underneath? Like you don't want them to grow under the pool or cause problems to the structure, right? Does that come into the plan, or not? It's pretty hard to get into concrete. I mean, obviously imagining.
It depends on the plan. Yeah. So for example, like you wouldn't plant a fig tree next to a pool
Yes.
because of the risk of that.
Of that, yeah.
But there's other trees that, you know, their roots are fine.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's say you walk into a property and they say, "Look, it's building a brand new home, and they want huge privacy, and they want to feel safe, security. Really, what's your recommendation in terms of figuring that out? Okay, well, we can add privacy to the front, the back, the sides. How are you going to get into that?
At the moment, I have a project and they're very worried about security because they call it a ghetto.
Right?
So they
Project in the ghetto.
So they want to create like a barrier through
Yeah.
planting to stop anyone from entering. So we're going to use the Lytton green hedge, which is a conifer. So it's a very compact conifer and plant it quite close together.
Okay.
And then that will be hard for people to get through. You could also achieve that through tightly planted lily pillies. Yeah, so anything that's like a hedge that you could create that security with. And if you needed
that's
extra
cool.
security, you just put a fence in there as well.
Fencing, yeah, of course. Okay, that's really cool. I know a lot of people are worried about privacy, especially in the backyards when you got
Definitely.
kids
yeah.
or in
Yeah.
a pool and stuff. So, okay, a lot of people when we come in are like, oh, what should I do here? And a lot of times we say, look, put some grass because it looks really good, right? What's your favorite type of grass
My favourite
In a-
turf.
in a flat standard?
So I'm a fan of fine leaf turfs
Okay.
and so do the broadleaf turf. So, for example, broadleaf turf would be Sir Walter, while fine leaf turf
So
would
water
be,
you find it in Bunnings and everywhere.
yeah,
It's
you
very
find it,
popular.
You find it everywhere. So my favourite fine leaf turf is Empire Zoysia. So it's lower maintenance, so you mow it less. It's got better sun and shade capabilities. My favourite broadleaf turf would be Sapphire Buffalo, which is a really nice broadleaf turf.
Yeah.
But yeah, Empire Zoysia would be my favourite.
And in terms of price, where does that sit compared to Sir Walter, for example?
I think Sir Walter might be either the same or a lower price.
Okay, and the Sir Walter is a bit more difficult on the maintenance.
Yes, it tends to thatch, so then you have to dethatch it. So what that means is like it builds up over time and gets very squishy. So
Yeah.
then you've got to thatch it, so reduce the squishiness of the turf.
Fair enough. If you have very small outdoor spaces, sometimes example for townhouses, we got a covered built patio, and then next door there's like a rectangle, but it's like 3x3. People ask us what to do with it, and for townhouses we see a lot of young couples. They have very young kids, so they want a little bit of grass, but really it's too small for grass. So sometimes, and you're probably going to hate that, but we recommend just fake turf because it's too small to have real grass. Sometimes doesn't have much natural light. So is that what you would say, or what would you put there?
It really depends what designer you ask.
Yeah.
We have all different opinions. I think that there is a place for artificial turf.
Yeah.
Where
I'm glad you
normal
say that.
turf cannot grow.
Yeah.
While more environmentally sensitive designers would be totally against it, but there is there's one turf that it's made out of sugarcane,
No way.
and it can then be recycled at the end of life. And then with all the other ones that aren't sugarcane,
What do you know the name of that one?
I can't really remember. No,
That's okay. That's
but
really
I just
cool
know
though.
there is a product
I'll
out there
type in on
like
Google
that.
sugarcane.
Yes.
Fake turf it's not fake.
And it looks quite real as well.
Yeah.
It's got like a good pile to it.
Yeah, okay, because I know the fake turf have got very different price ranges. You
Yes.
can get a really shit one for very cheap, but you can also get really,
Yeah.
really amazing ones. So
If you get one that for thicker pile, which is usually your more expensive one, there is a little bit of maintenance. You have to broom it.
Yeah.
So, but it's less than mowing it.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it definitely has its place. So, you know, for a townhouse where it's very shady and it just does not make sense to have turf. But also what you can do with townhouses, instead of doing turf, artificial turf, you can create that as a garden space and like have children play within the garden. And then for your turf space, you can use like the local pocket park, which would have your turf areas where you can kick a ball around and just make
Oh,
sense.
you mean going to the park? Yeah,
To
okay.
just use the park instead of the backyard.
True. That's a more eco-friendly option, I guess. What was the craziest landscaping idea you've ever heard from a client? What was the most outrageous when you're like, this is crazy? Why not? But this is crazy. Oh, you had a few? You had a few?
Yeah, I've had many. I guess I had one client, they were situated in Brisbane and they wanted no mosquitoes in their garden
In Queensland?
in Queensland,
That's an
Brisbane,
interesting
which
one.
is very difficult to do. So what you can do, like you cannot stop mosquitoes from going into a property, but what you can do is take away places where they would breed. So bromeliads, where like the water sits in the plant, is it like an especially, you know, much
No
love.
pool, no.
Pools are fine because of the chemicals in the pool, but any like water that's stagnant. So, you know, you think about some pots sit on like a saucer. So the water fills up in the saucer and that's a place for mosquitoes to be.
Yeah.
So you can minimize the mosquito breeding areas, but you can't stop the mosquito from coming.
That's a pretty wild request in Queensland, isn't it, with our climate?
Yeah. Another one was flies.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of my last questions today is, have you ever had people that really wanted something, a plan, type of grass, type of trees and fire pit here and there, but when you did a bit of research and the type of soil that was underneath didn't allow to do that? Does that happen often, or generally around Brisbane, you can do a lot of things?
Sure. Sometimes people might want, in Brisbane, for example, like a maple tree. So usually maple trees don't grow in Brisbane. So that's something that you would do in, you know, Toowoomba or something, you know, colder region. Sometimes, you know, it might be a palm tree that they saw in their holiday in far north Queensland. And they want to grow it here.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't be able to do that unless you had a heat lamp on it. So
Right, okay.
usually it's the planting just doesn't match the region.
Okay.
Yeah.
So climate, that's going back to climate.
Or sometimes the plant is too big for the space that they
Yeah.
want. So they might want, you know, a jacaranda in their backyard and there's no room for a jacaranda.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. Thank you very much.
okay.
It was awesome. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate it.
It's okay.
Thanks, Eva.
Thank you.